Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Jack. Back again to talk about some of the healers we've been testing on PTR, namely Mistweaver, Holy Paladin, and Resto Druid. I wanted to check in on these healers now that PTR is out with Mythic Plus testing, and we got an opportunity to see how they play. Mistweaver, of course, is looking to be the crazy OP spec, the super powerful spec and everything going into next season, but there's still a lot of PTR left. So what's feeling so strong about Mistweaver? Well, they've made a few key changes, one of which is to the Jade Empowerment talent, which is empowering your Crackling Jade Lightning every time that you hit your Thunder Focus Tea. Originally in 1107, it was making it so that it cleaves onto 5 targets and all of those targets take more damage from your lightning. Now they're changing it so it does massive single target damage and then still does buffed up damage to 4 other enemies, but it makes it incredibly relevant to use on a single target, and it makes it really valuable for DPSing down prio targets. And if you didn't know, it also works with your Jade teachings, converting into healing onto your allies. And so this talent, which arrived in 1107, now provides an excellent further healing increase on top of your Thunder Focus Tea, producing massive amounts of healing. It's also, like I mentioned, great for prio target, which what we've seen already in Operation Floodgate, there can be quite a bit of prio target going out there. And there's a lot of boss fights with ads or multi-targets that you have to deal with, and so the lightning still gets further value there. And it's also really good on the single target bosses, providing like a moderate healing cooldown, which when you combine it with your Renewing Mist spreading around, which are also applying your new insurance buff from your tier set bonus, it feels like you just have tons of tools on hand to deal with your problems. Sheilun's gift feels pretty good. It's not as insane as it was in Dragonflight Season 3, but it's still a solid cooldown to take advantage of. And with Master of Harmony, the hero talent there, it seems like you pretty much have the highest healer DPS that I've seen so far in testing. I would imagine that Conjure the Celestials will still be pretty good since it is, a solid healing cooldown, especially when players are close enough together. The extra stamina from, or the effective health, I guess you could say, from the shields that Conjure the Celestial hero talent provides is also pretty nice. So you kind of just have a lot of tools to get through a lot of your problems. And your biggest cooldown at this point in the patch, which probably will get nerfed, is called Jade Bond. Now, usually monks in Season 1 of the War Within would run Gift of the Celestials, decreasing the cooldown, but also decreasing the uptime of your Celestial. You'd run Chi-Ji, the Crackbird, and your DPS abilities kick up Gust of Mist, and that provides healing. It also gives you some enveloping mist casts where you can cast faster and cheaper and get really good healing out of it. With the Jade Bond talent, you still maintain a 3-minute cooldown on your Chi-Ji, but kicking up those Gust of Mist, dealing damage, is going to give you cooldown reduction for your Chi-Ji. And with how many extra Gusts of Mist from some of the changes that they've been making produce, well, that just means that your 3-minute cooldown can get below 1 minute very, very quickly, very easily. It also has an insanely long duration, so at the moment, this feels like a really overpowered cooldown, a really overpowered talent that I would not be surprised if it gets nerfed. But even if it did, there are even dungeons I was running without it, running the Gifts of the Celestials just to see what it would be like, and it still felt really powerful. Mistweaver still feels really powerful, even if they were to nerf Jade Bond, which I expect, mainly because they are having more Gust of Mist triggers happening than they, I believe, were intending, and there's more cooldown reduction happening for Jade Bond than I believe they intend, so we'll see. Even if it does get nerfed, the spec still does a massive amount of healer output, and that's going to be a huge deal going into Season 2. When Augs are not buffing the healers, whichever healer's doing the most output, kind of like Dragonflight Season 3. I know Aug was in that season, but Season 3 of Dragonflight had so many brutal healer checks, and the healer that just deals with them the best is going to be the one that you're going to want to bring into your group, it looks like at the moment. So really keeping an eye on Mistweaver. I loved how it was playing. I love that they make it so your damage actually feels really impactful on single target, both with your lightning and just with your regular Rising Sun kick, heavy blackout kick gameplay. So fist weaving is super powerful. You still can easily spec into Soothing Mist if you wanted to just blast some single target healing into one prio target. Your cooldowns all feel very frequent to utilize, and they feel powerful in their own right. So from a design perspective, performance perspective, and game perspective, Mistweaver feels really awesome right now. Now, in my last video, I talked about Holy Paladin having like an L when it came to some of the changes, and I've kind of changed my mind a little bit on it. The changes that Holy Pally got going into 11.1 focused on making your casted spells, your Holy Lights, your Flash of Lights just a little bit more favorable to utilize, because often you would get your Infusion of Light procs from your Holy Shot crits, and you'd kind of sit on them. You'd use a lot of them in Judgment for your Greater Judgment to absorb some more damage, and not really take advantage of all the other Infusion of Light procs that you got. But now that they've added some set buffs to your Holy Light, in particular when you're able to stack it with Divine Favor, which you get from casting Holy Prism, and from your infusion procs, it actually feels like the ability hits really hard now. It takes a lot of time to get all those modifiers together, but I will say that actually casting a few of these spells, I think I cast like 40 in a dungeon, was really not bad whatsoever. And there's also some pretty interesting gameplay which is coming with the tier set. Notably, the tier set for Holy Paladins is causing your Divine Toll to apply insurance to all of your allies, which, for one, makes it a little one-dimensional in using your Divine Toll only for healing. Otherwise, you miss out on some of the insurance value. But I don't think that's too big of a deal, because your spenders are giving you cooldown reduction to get your Divine Toll back faster. And what this has done is it really created a positive feedback loop for a Avenging Crusader, Lightsmith, melee wings paladin, in that you want to be using your Awakening procs, which you get from spending Holy Power, by the way, and you want to make sure you're using your Avenging Crusader wings about as frequently as you can. You might hold it for like 2 seconds or 3 seconds here, but not long, right? And as a result, you're really focused on building and spending Holy Power very quickly, because by doing so, you get Awakening, which will proc your wings again. But also, by using Divine Toll, your spenders are giving you Divine Toll cooldown reduction. And so you're getting more Divine Tolls and more insurances that you can put onto your allies, which, once again, they auto-proc when somebody drops low. And so even using Divine Toll in advance of incoming damage, since those individual Holy Shocks don't really hit super hard, but using it in advance of incoming damage actually does feel really valuable and really strong. I'll have the builds that I was using in the description below as well if you ever wanted to import them. Hopefully it should work with the PTR stuff, but I really enjoyed these builds for when I was testing Holy Pally, because I would be using Avenging Crusader on cooldown religiously, and then I could back it up with Divine Toll soon afterwards, and then I could be pretty quickly expecting my Awakening proc to fill some of the gap that I had when I didn't have Avenging Crusader back. And I can always have my Beacon of Virtue onto all my allies, and since I'm not instantly consuming my Holy Prism Divine Favor buff for my Holy Light, I can kind of pool it, hold on to it for a bit whenever I'm in downtime between my Avenging Crusader, between my Divine Toll. Then I can kind of cast a couple hard-hitting spells with my Infusion and Divine Favor buffs. They hit hard. They're hitting for like 4 mil, and I think we're around 7 mil HP or something, so over half of somebody's health bar. If I was having all these modifiers on top of each other, they could hit really hard. And then you are also building Holy Power once again, and building and spending, and actually getting good uptime on all of these cooldowns. I do think that Holy Paladin's max HPS is still a little bit too low. There's a lot of penalty, I think, still given to the spec for having your extra damage reduction from Devotion Aura that you're bringing to the table. I think they're penalizing the spec a little bit too much for it. Personally, I think Devotion Aura and Lenience for Disc Priests, these like small but very impactful damage reductions, are really bad for the game in general, and they also are counted against the specs, it seems like, and so our output gets kind of lowered since you get mitigation built into it, which again, not a huge fan of. But I will say, what they've done with Holy Paladin, honestly, I feel like they just need like 1% aura buff, and they could be really good in dungeons. Maybe a bit of copium onto it, but I've actually been having a good time with it, although, like I said, that feeling, that lack of output has still been kind of there. So hopefully they make some changes onto that one. Druid historically has been my least favorite healer spec and one of my least played, but I've really been satisfied with how much stronger it feels in the 11.1 PTR. Now, notably in the War Within Season 1, they got 3 different rounds of buffs since launch, with like 17% additional healing that got provided to it. And they also made changes to Resto Druid's Mastery, and I got a first look really at seeing how that felt. And one of the biggest things that I noticed, and we'll have to see how it pans out as we get into higher level dungeons, better coordinated groups, different dungeon environments, but at least at the moment, I was playing with a Convoke setup on, its 1 minute cooldown, and I had both my, life blooms either rolling on myself if I needed to do AoE, or like DPS, for example, if they were taking huge hits. And once I got more used to actually rolling around those life blooms and moving them around a little bit more for the situations, it felt like I had a really high ceiling when it came to my overall HPS. But maybe that's part of the problem, is getting to like super high key levels when you need to be having all of your hots. I wonder if this mastery change could kind of cap out their healing in that way. But coming from quickly applying some hots, being able to deal with unexpected damage as I test a brand new dungeon on a healer I'm not too familiar with, it actually felt pretty good. Being able to kick with the fluid form change felt really good. I still have to go and try how some of the owl weaving is going to work instead of the kitty weaving setup, but I was playing a wild stalker build and I enjoyed that quite a lot. And I'm also, pretty used to more of like the melee focus builds anyway from playing Pally and Mistweaver, so it's not too big of a challenge for me to like stand in melee and deal with some of those things. And going forward, Druid still has a really good kit. It's been kind of surprising that only Boomkin has seen some M+ representation at higher key levels. Our Druids had a little bit, but Disc is just dominated in Season 1. That Mark of the Wild buff, even though it was nerfed going into the War Within, is still incredibly powerful. It does feel like there's still a lot of setup that goes into the spec, very GCD intensive to set up your healing, especially compared to like Disc Priest, who could just Radiance, hit 2 damage buttons, and then you're rolling. H-Pally, you pop wings and your damage instantly turns into healing. Monk kind of has a lot of little cooldowns to juggle between. It does seem like there's a bit much in terms of this setup, and I don't like that Flourish and Photosynthesis still are sharing their talent nodes. That's a major point of frustration, I feel, and I don't really know if they're going to be making any of those changes anytime soon, but I am at least satisfied that they're making some improvements along the way. But I really do think if they were having Flourish on just like an easier talent node to get, that would go so well for the spec and making it a little bit more fluid to be able to play, because otherwise you're kind of fighting up against the hots and the maintenance before damage even happens. That being said, there is a lot of PTR left remaining, and we're going to be continuing on with some more healer coverage as more updates are coming along, as new dungeons are coming along, and new bosses in the raid to go along. So if I missed anything, or if you have any other questions about the PTR in the incoming season, be sure to let me know in the description down below. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks to our patrons and you loyal subscribers for making all this content possible. If you'd like to join, check us out in the description down below. Thank you for watching, guys. Hope you all enjoyed it, and I'll catch you all next time.